The entire structure of Five Nights at Freddy's security breach just shifted, and I'm not talking about the ground the Pizzaplex is built on. Well, actually, I kind of am, considering it's under this ground that we find the game's final boss, the reanimated incarnation of William Afton that the game's files refer to as Burntrap. This monster seems to be a reconstructed version of everyone's favorite William Afton, brought back to life after his digital self is uploaded to the VR game Help Wanted, and then back into his original body. Oh, and somewhere along the way he also managed to grab himself a reluctant follower or two. But it seems that with the most recent story to be leaked by Freddy user ntom, we have an entirely different backstory for this character, one that brings massive change and massive consequence. Let's just say that if you're a fan of MatPat's Timeline series, that fourth video is about to be completely turned on its head. The truth lies in a brand new character who's been dubbed the Mimic. I'll briefly go over the Mimic's origins as we know them, and then also what I think it means for the series. So let's begin. The Mimic was created in the 1980s by Edwin Burrows. Burrows worked alongside Fazbear Entertainment, after having first been noticed when he created a vacuum cleaner with an AI, known as Mr. Hugs. Yes, the same Mr. Hugs that appears in Pizzeria Sim, and the same Mr. Hugs that torments Toy Freddy in UCN. Anyways, Burrows has a bit of a problem. He has a 4-year-old son, but unfortunately due to his work, not much time to take care of him, so he decides to create a robot that would do it for him. Edwin designs the Mimic, which is the top half of an endoskeleton with a program called Mimic 1 that allows it to mimic what it sees. Essentially, the Mimic would need to watch Edwin take care of his son, and then it would be able to recreate that, and eventually take care of his son during the day while Edwin was busy working. Edwin even taught the Mimic how to hold a stuffed white tiger toy, with its arms curled up to its chest in a specific way. It was a brilliant plan, but you know what they say, when man makes plans, God laughs. In a tragic car accident, Edwin's son is killed. This causes Edwin's personality to start changing, and he becomes aggressive and angry. He starts abusing the Mimic, hitting it, damaging it. He eventually causes so much damage that the robot's head is smashed and has to be replaced. All while this is happening, Edwin's sorrow, his agony, begins to seep into the robot and animates it. Due to its program learning from observation, as well as being driven by Edwin's own emotion, the Mimic becomes violent. Eventually, Edwin abandons it in the factory he was living in. Later on, we'd know that Edwin became essentially the chairman for all of Fazbear Entertainment, but he had left the Mimic behind to be recovered. A team is sent in to retrieve it, this being Team B. Their mission was to recover the Mimic and give it legs so that they could eventually use it. However, there's something wrong. The reason Team B is called is because Team A never came back. Team B finds Team A's body stuffed inside cabinets and refrigerators, in an eerie way that seems to be emulating how Edwin used to organize his living space. The Mimic attacks Team B in various animatronic costumes, ending with a white tiger. That's all from the Mimic's story, but the character also seems to be the main antagonist of the epilogue series. For those who don't know, Fazbear Frights would end each book with an epilogue. These epilogues were individual chapters of a much larger, overarching narrative that tied everything together. However, the epilogues in this new series, Tales from the Pizzaplex, seems less interested in tying Lally's game and Somnophobia together, but giving us more details surrounding this Mimic character. To briefly summarize what's happened so far, a construction crew brings an odd-looking endoskeleton down to the site of the old pizza place in order to break apart other endos and stack them up. Simple order: break the limbs and tear off the heads. The problem starts when the endo starts doing that to the construction workers. Eventually, the endoskeleton, who I bet you already know is the Mimic, is sealed away down there. However, that's not the end of it. A group of teenagers sneak in and soon find themselves trapped, being picked off one by the Mimic. They eventually learn that he's capable of disguising himself as other mascots, attacking them in a variety of costumes. Although the most recent epilogue has not been revealed fully, according to ntom, this is the epilogue that explains how the Mimic would eventually be connected to William Afton. So without a doubt, this Mimic character is almost definitely our Burntrap, but why? How? And what about glitchtrap? Well, let's look even further. There's another story that seems to be related to the Mimic, but it's unclear how it came to be. The Storyteller. This story revolves around a synthetic baobab tree in the center of the atrium. This baobab tree is known as the Storyteller, and its job is to send messages, orders, and directions to every machine in the Pizzaplex. In the same story, Edwin Burrows ends up being trapped inside it, and discovers that the Storyteller is hooked up to the head of a white tiger animatronic, and it's sending a program throughout the Pizzaplex. That program? Mimic 1. Edwin would end up dying in the Storyteller, which is what probably led to it being scrapped by the time of security breach. However, it explains a lot. Namely, it explains why everything in Security Breach is corrupted. It's all due to the Mimic. But that's not all. I mentioned earlier that the Mimic relates to glitchtrap, and well, that's absolutely true. While burntrap might be the Mimic, glitchtrap, it seems, is Mimic 1. It's mentioned that in Help Wanted that certain circuit boards were scanned from Fazbear Entertainment to help the development of the VR game, specifically so Silver Parasol wouldn't have to program in their own pathfinding. What better way to go about this than using Mimic 1, a program which was made to replicate animatronic routines? That's when things went wrong. This is getting more into theory territory, but I believe that Mimic 1 seeing the version of Afton that we see at the end of the final level is what triggered it to become the glitchtrap we know. It's mimicking William Afton based on what it saw in Help Wanted. Tom, though, has a different idea, and although it's not been confirmed, this is related to the epilogue stories. Apparently, it's implied that the Mimic may have seen the missing children's incident go down, and that's what causes it to replicate Afton. But I do think there's more to it still. There's a specific line in the character encyclopedia that sticks out, namely in saying that whatever was inside Springtrap is inside Burntrap. Plus, I mean, we still see Afton's dead body inside Burntrap, so what happened? What I think we're going to find out is that in trying to mimic Afton, the Mimic had Vanny recover Afton's original body to move the corpse and spring Bonnie suit onto the Mimic Endo. But what else does this recontextualize? Well, how about the post-it note room? That Afton family dinner, the binary writing, and the childlike scrawl? It makes sense now for the Mimic to be what was kept here, its behaviors mixing with each other. I'm a little iffy on this one, but it's an answer I'm confident in. Then I thought, wait, if the Mimic has been around since the 1980s, and can fit any costume, is it possible we've seen it before? This was something I really wanted to answer. In creating the Mimic, was Scott and Steelwool retconning earlier games in some way? Well, maybe. Namely, this Endo from FNAF 2 stands out. He only appears twice, once in the prize counter, and once in the vents. We know he's an actual character and not a hallucination because he can actually body block other characters. If Withered Bonnie is trying to get into the vent, and this Endo is in there, then Withered Bonnie can't get in. But he also doesn't kill you. Why? Well, if he's the Mimic, then there's a chance it's because he simply hasn't seen your character die. He wouldn't know how to kill you. How about this Endo 01 in FNAF 1? An odd, standout character given he's clearly haunted in some way, but he never makes an attempt to try and kill you. It's possible this could be the Mimic as well. Not saying either of these characters are for sure the Mimic 100%, but I think it's entirely possible and just the kind of retcon I imagine Scott would make just for the fun of it. Regardless of all that, it seems like Security Breach's story is a lot more complicated than we initially thought. The thing is, I think the general response to the Mimic has been really wonderful. People love the idea of this character, and I have to admit I'm right there with them. This is definitely my new favorite piece of lore from the FNAF series in a long time, pretty much since we first heard about Vanny. Oh, right, Vanny. This is where it gets a bit tricky. If Mimic is not in fact William Afton, then does that mean Vanny isn't possessed by Afton either? It would appear so, but I'm gonna put a pin in that for now. The way Vanny acts, it definitely seems more like she's working for or with the real William Afton, not a copy. Of course, it's also possible that Vanny doesn't know the Mimic is a copy. We'll just have to see. But I think my favorite part of this reveal is it finally kills the Afton family resurrection theory. Kind of. While a case could be made that the Mimic selected Vanessa and Gregory to be his thralls because they look similar to members of Afton's family, I think we can rest easy knowing that they most likely aren't actually robot versions of old lore characters. And I mean, I feel like that was obvious from the get-go, but hey, theorists gotta theorize. Really, the only loose threads now would seem to be the Michael Afton room and Glamrock Freddy. It's not clear why Glamrock Freddy, by the time of Security Breach, seems to have some sort of immunity to the glitchtrap virus, when in the books, he's as much taken over as any of the others. Is he possessed? Who knows at this point? I guess that might just be one more mystery Ruin will have to answer. I'm DMuted. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe. I stream every Friday at 1 PM EST, so tune in if you want to yell at me or theorize with me. Until then, peace.